Come on, come here, come a little closer. Don't be afraid.
Many organizations claim they want transformation. Few are willing to confront what transformation demands. Dr. Sara Taylor works at that intersection. As a leadership development strategist and equity-centered practitioner, she challenges individuals and institutions to move beyond performative language into operational change. Her work is not about optics. It's about structure. It's about cultivating leaders who understand power, responsibility, and systemic impact. Dr. Taylor, welcome.
Thank you. And it's Sarah.
I'm going to give you all your roses, girl.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I'm so glad that you're here. You have spent years developing leaders across industries, and I know we are in such a time of change. So my first question for you is, what are some of the shifts that you're seeing in leadership as it relates to the work that you're doing?
Well, we are in a current climate right now where the focus that I typically have, although I work with all leaders, a lot of the work that I have centered my life and my career on has been around advancing opportunities for women of color. Mm-hmm. We have since grown over the last 3 or 4 years, really bringing allies into the conversation and moving from conversation to action in work. But we are seeing at a national level, we are seeing somewhat of a backlash for the type of work that I lead. I'm passionate about. I'm authentic in this space, knowing all of the statistics around leadership in women of color. And so there has still been a tremendous investment among regional as well as local organizations that stay committed, whether it's leadership development, whether it's health fellows, Leadership Rochester, Leadership Buffalo, many leadership development organizations are still committed in that space. But I also think we have to really also right now in this climate look at the unemployment rate and the data that we are seeing, particularly around women of color, and really look at what we can do in the work, in the strategies, in the commitment for the movement of advancing opportunities for women to say, wait a minute, what are these barriers right now? Yeah. How do we authentically address them without feeling that we're going to get backlash for saying words like DEI or for saying words like we support LGBTQI plus. So really, I think it's a fine line right now. Yeah. Organizations are afraid. They're afraid to lose federal dollars. Yeah. That is the reality. Afraid to use federal dollars. But then you have those organizations and companies that say, we know the value that women bring to our organization, to our businesses, to our products, and we are going to stand firm on supporting them no matter what.
I love that so much. I'm with you. I've been working in diversity for almost 10 years, and there was a time where it felt so exciting. You know, I think of especially right around the COVID time where it felt like things were people were really starting to get it, you know, and things are really starting to click. And then things changed, as they do sometimes. And I'm with you in that it has become almost like a curse word, you know, to even mention. And it's so hard. And I can only imagine, I love your perspective on this, but as someone like me who's, you know, I'm an academic, I am a nerd, I love to nerd out into the research of things. Like, I know the data, I know the numbers. So you can't tell me that there is not a purpose for programming like this, that there's not a need that needs to be filled, and that there's also not benefit to the organizations and the communities that they're in. So I know you are a brilliant woman and you have all of this information on how this impacts organizations and communities. I guess my question for you is, how are you navigating this when you know you have all the receipts? I already know you have all the information. You know what's best for these companies. You know what's best for our communities. How are you navigating this climate?
I think, in all honesty, you have to really meet, whether it's an individual or company, where they are and where they're ready to go.
Yeah.
I cannot emphasize how important it is for those that are backing up on inclusion initiatives, that whether we're talking 2020 or 2026, to really look at the value add to your organization. Without funding, without initiatives, what does it mean for the core mission, the core values of your product, your services, your workforce? What does it mean to be inclusive of all women and to recognize that there is a subset of women that often have, statistically speaking, some challenges navigating in the workspace. So I think really meeting organizations where they are, that are upfront and honest, to say, we want this work, but we're terrified of the current climate. How do we go forth and still let our employees know that we value them and we're not going to back down? We just might need to pivot a little bit around our language, but staying true to our mission. And that is so important, that message resonates internally.
Yeah.
Because when employees see you changing wording on a website, changing wording on policies and procedures, they'll begin to question, were you authentic from the beginning?
Right. Yeah.
Did you really want to do this work? Or was this work performative? Or were you just trying to be political correct? So I think it's so important to have these conversations and not try to hide things or dance around things, because employees are smart. They know what's going on in a company when no one else does. And so I think transparency is important, and meeting companies where they are and not calling people out for backing up or pivoting in a different way, but really meeting them where they are.
Yeah, because I get what you're saying. There's some very real challenges. I'm working on a project right now, and I know what our mission is, and I'm a part of the project because it's also part of my mission. But it was very clear from the communications department that under no circumstances could I mention racial inequality, or that was the purpose behind the program. And I understood. And of course I obliged, but it felt a little bit like swallowing razor blades, right? Like, oh, like that is what we're doing here. And that shouldn't be a dirty thing, like we don't have to get into all the numbers and all the history, but the data is there. This isn't, from my perspective, I'm like, this isn't something at this point that's really up to opinion. Right? Like the data is there. The facts of the matter are all very clear. And the data also shows that when we support, whether it's employees, my work has been more in the entrepreneurial space, but the data is very clear that when MWBEs flourish, the community flourishes. And when they do not flourish, the community does not flourish. So it's just a very real case study. And when you break it down, it's simple to understand, right? When we think of some of these more historic companies that have taken up the space of these contracts, well, they tend to be multi-billion-dollar conglomerates. So when they get the work, it's typically farmed outside of the marketplace. And I'm not saying that working with people outside of the marketplace is necessarily a negative thing, but if all of the money from the community is then being siphoned out of the community, then we create real economic issues. So the solution to that is very simple. It's empower more minority and women-owned businesses who are going to keep the money circulating through the local economy, and that's going to raise everyone up. And although that is deeply rooted in research and data and been proven over and over again, I'm not allowed to talk about it anymore.
Well, it's interesting. Many years ago, I found myself as a neighborhood association president. And I learned so much about investing in neighborhoods. I used to dine out a lot. And so now I am very rarely dining at a chain restaurant.
Right.
Particularly because I wholeheartedly understand spending my dollar at home in this region for locally owned and operated businesses. I make a point to, within my 1 mile radius, there's particular stores that I make sure I go and do bulk shopping once a month, because if those stores disappear from our neighborhood, and then we're in trouble. And so it's so important, as much as possible, to keep that dollar local, to keep that dollar regional, to invest in small businesses. We know all the data about small businesses and entrepreneurs and locally owned. I just believed it, and it really opened up my eyes being a neighborhood president. Looking at working with the businesses in the neighborhood and really understanding their value, their contribution to the particular neighborhood. So I am all about locally owned and operated.
Yeah. Yeah. And I hope, as you know, it's hard to discuss the topic that we're discussing today and not, of course, acknowledge what's happening at a macro level. It's deeply connected. I've always been a believer that you vote with your dollar. Right. So I love what you're saying, is that this is where the power comes from, economic power, and many of the very unfortunate things that are coming to light in the major news scene right now. These are very closely correlated to people who have had tremendous wealth, tremendous power, and that has gone unchecked. So as a consumer, I love that you're talking about this local spending and local support, because that is really truly the greatest impact that we can have right now. The greatest way to show our resistance to this type of behavior is stop fueling the machine as much as you can. I realize there's some things that maybe we can't get around, fair enough. But where you can, to your point, choose a local restaurant over a chain. Where can you keep those dollars local? Because that money stays in circulation at a local level and allows the entire community to thrive.
Absolutely. So important, so important. And even, vendors, I often, as you manage conferences, there are technology vendors that we have to have, sometimes decorators that we have to bring in. And how can we really leverage local talent also? I often say that there are so many talented women that no one knows. And as you know, birthing the Women of Color Summit, going into our 7th year. And we were so excited to have you as our keynote last year. I've been so intentional about cultivating new faces and new voices and experiences. And I often get emails or comments from speakers that will say to me, well, how come you don't call me back? And I will often say, if you look at anything that I put forward, most likely you see different faces.
Yeah.
And I also look for women that show up that are not on the program. I always say to them afterwards, I see you. And trust me, in a couple months, I'm calling you. And I stay true to that because I am from that school of thought that you have to always be in a position to learn. Not always in front of the camera, not always on stage. How can you listen and learn in the audience? And so I'm very, very observant in different spaces regarding who shows up that's not on the program. Yeah. And trust me, I see them.
Yes, I love that. I love, when you reached out to me, well, I can attest to what you just said, because we met at the Empower Her Summit. Now, my goodness, a little over 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And that's what she said to me. And at the time, I just thought, oh, that was nice. Like, she really liked my session. And then your email came. And that was not just a compliment, and you brought me into that space. And I'll tell you, one of the things that just really stuck with me, and it's coming up in a lot of my conversations right now, was about the allyship. I recognize that I am a pale-skinned individual, much to my dismay. And although I'm Hispanic and Greek, I relate in some ways. I also understand that my complexion has given me certain privileges, and I deeply respect that there is a difference, and it was interesting because I'm working with a wonderful group of students right now. I have 20 entrepreneurs that I'm bringing through an incubator this year, which is, I didn't know I loved teaching so much. My goodness, I love it. It's been great. And there was a woman in the class who asked me that question. She said, do you consider yourself a woman of color? And I said, in experience, I guess, to a degree, right? But I'm never going to pretend like I understand what it's like to be a Black woman in America. I can't. What I can say is, because so many of my loved ones, so many of the women in my life who have made the biggest impact have been Black women, I have had the experience of the secondhand piece, right? And this is someone I love dearly, right? So that has had an impact on my experience. And because of that, my intention has been, and now how I'm living, is to leverage that privilege strategically, right, to help make an impact. And what I love about you is, like, as someone who, I had a mentor once who said, you're never really going to fit in anywhere, so just get comfortable with that now, and he was right. But the way that you opened your arms to that conversation and the way that you genuinely walk it and create that space, I really believe that we're in a time that we have to execute allyship.
We do. And this year, as a part of the Women of Color Summit, we are actually having an Ally Institute.
Shut up.
No.
Oh, my goodness.
We take surveys, evaluations so serious. And Dr. Karen King from Erie County Commission on the Status of Women and Girls, and Stephanie Peet from Say Yes Buffalo Workforce Development spends a lot of time working with employers that want to hire the next generation of leaders.
Yeah.
And so they have worked with a committee, and they have developed this incredible allyship institute this year as a part of the Women of Color Summit. So day one on June 3rd in the morning from 10 to 3 will be an allyship institute, brave space where all are welcome. And it's really interesting. We just presented to Buffalo Equity Alliance, and it was a room full of allies in the room. And after our presentation about the Women of Color Summit and needing allies in this space to facilitate, 5 white males came up to us and said, how do we participate in the Ally Institute?
Oh, my goodness. That's like,
how do we? And that was so powerful for me, walking into this room, presenting on the history of the Women of Color Summit, and emphasizing that there is space for allies to come learn, to come in this brave safe space, brave space, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
You are welcome allies to come learn. And we realize also when you say that word allyship, allyship means something different for every person. Maybe a person is just in that listening mode, not ready to take action. That's fine to come and listen and learn.
Yeah.
And maybe you are that ally that have listened and studied and witnessed and researched, and now you're ready to take it to the next level, to take action. Well, we have some strategies for you also. And so we wanted to cultivate space because as a Black woman that is a champion for women of color in the workplace, that mentors, executive coach, convenes high-level mock interviews, C-suite interviews for women that are seeking to advance to C-suite roles. It's so important that we don't have this conversation alone. It gets exhausting when you look at the data, not just look at the data, when you live through some of this. And so we need allies that are not afraid, that said, you know what, I really want to come learn in this space how I can advance my knowledge in this space. And so it has become so critical in this work, particularly around the Women of Color Summit, as well as tomorrow. We're kicking off our Women's History Month Symposium in Batavia, where we are bringing over 70 women from Rochester and Buffalo together. And one of the conversations we're going to have is about pay equity.
I love it. It's as a woman who loves all women, and just cherishes women and wants to uplift women. There have been so many spaces that I've been in where we are really starting to have this conversation about sisterhood, and like, what does that mean? Because I firmly believe women thrive best when we gather. We thrive best in community and in collaboration. And historically, I get it, right? There's a lot there. There's in many, many ways. But if we just boil it down to the simplest one, because there's a lot there. The simplest one was up until the 1960s-ish, right? Women were not allowed to have a bank account. They were not allowed to own a business. They were not allowed to participate in most roles in the workforce. They were limited in what they could do. So up until literally about 60 years ago, women were reliant upon men for their survival. And we competed with one another for the best mate. So 1960s come around, 1970s come around, all of a sudden, now we're allowed this financial freedom. And I think, especially for my generation, I think we forget how recent this was, I'm like, my mom was born without these rights, right? So when we think about it from that perspective, I hear some women will say, well, we can't do the women stuff because women are catty or they're this or they're that. And I'm like, that is an old school mentality that I invite us to consider not making each other wrong for that because we were forced into a survival mode. Right. And then when we add the layers of race and ethnicity and household income and all of these other inequities, well, now we start to have some real rifts. And when I talk about sisterhood, one of the things that comes up for me is I think it's important, and I would love your perspective on this. I think it's important that we acknowledge the wounds and the fractures between what I call the tribes. It exists. Right. And I'm not going to pretend that who I am, at least on the outside, might not remind you of something that you've experienced. And I'm also not going to own that because that's not who I am. But I'm going to make space for you to get to know me, and I'm going to do that with honor and with respect. And I'm not going to fake the funk and I'm not going to kiss your butt either, but you're going to get to know me. And at some point in time, you're going to know she's down for me just because she loves who I am as a person and everything else really doesn't matter, So as we think about these kind of these wounds, between our tribes, and as we're trying to mend them and come together, what are some of the things that you're seeing that are giving you maybe some hope and inspiration for what's to come next?
Well, I've been seeing a lot of conversations about healing circles in healing space, where we can really have these conversations about offense, unspoken competition, colorism among women of color, and that I want to be the only one. I want to be it. In the workplace. I want to be it in this space. And so I'm hearing more about having these honest conversations. How do we heal? How do we move together collectively to strengthen, the movement in the sense of there's enough room for all of us. There's enough room. But again, when you look at societal mindsets in that unintentional competition, it has done us harm. And we continue to forge ahead, climbing ladders without going back and addressing those wounds in the workplace. I had to recently recognize that my style of leadership is not always good for staff that report to me. And that I may have unintentionally caused some wounds that I have to go back and get right and have that conversation. I am that outward-facing leader. I am that community connector. I'm that builder. I am not an internal operations person at all. I am not going to sit with you in supervision once a week. I'm just not going to do it. And unfortunately, with that desire to grow and build an organization, I often, again, unintentionally recognize that I often stretch staff. Some that are not ready to be stretched. And I remember someone that I hired that was a dear friend of mine's. And I hired her, which was a huge mistake, to hire a very close friend. And with my style of leadership being so hands-off, I recognized probably a year into this work relationship that I needed to be accountable for what she was doing. And so I started asking questions about, holding her accountable and also acknowledging that I gave you a lot of autonomy, but I still don't know what you're doing. And, we had a couple hard conversations. And what I realized is that, as a leader, you have to really be self-aware.
Yeah.
You have to really be self-aware and listen. And I realize, and even now with a new group of staff that I'm leading, I have to realize that I work in Buffalo twice a week now. So I'm in Rochester and Buffalo. And so again, being hands off, growing, building this relationship, cultivating this grant funding and initiative, that you may be stretching your staff. Are you listening? Do you have a pulse on morale? Do you have a pulse on what's going on? So I in this leadership space, as we have this conversation, I am assessing what areas of development do I still need? And need to take a serious self-reflection, look in the mirror.
Oh my goodness. I just think that's such the mark of a great leader, is that they're never done learning. Right. And I've seen many leaders in my day, many different types of leaders in my day. And there are so many people that get to a point where they feel like they've arrived and then that's it. And this is the way that they do things because it's the way it's always worked. And this is the way it's going to work moving forward. And I just couldn't agree with you more that when you're in a leadership capacity, you are your first project, right? Like I can't ask my team to understand something or show up in a certain way or have a certain, vision for something or execute something if I'm not doing that myself, right? It starts with me and how I lead my team or the teams that I'm involved in. It starts with me. If I had gone into some of these spaces with my own lack of self-awareness, with my own filters of the world. And it's not to say that some of those don't still exist because they do, because I'm a human being living on earth. So until I transition to the next space, that will be part of my experience. But if we don't prioritize that, and I've certainly seen it, and I've also experienced it, I can tell you one of the things that I just got to a place of clarity on. And it's interesting because it goes back to how women are socialized, is I realized as a leader, I actually give people too much grace. And that's a problem. So where did that come from? Like if I went back and I thought about it, I went, why do I make excuses for people? Part of it is that it's my blessing and my curse. I can truly see the good in like every human being. And it's a blessing and it's a curse, like I can see it. I'm like, almost I want it more for you than you want. And that was the aha moment was and especially as someone who develops and manage people's personal brands, right? I can see, you could really crush it in this and you would be so amazing in this. But what I realized, and this was a huge lesson for me over the last year, is I can't force you to embody anything. I can put beautiful communications together and outstanding marketing materials, and I can style you to the heavens. Like you can look the part in every single way, but if you're not embodying that, like if you haven't truly integrated that into your being, eventually it's going to come through. Like at some point, there's going to be a day, doesn't matter who you are, right? It's going to be, you got stuck in traffic, you spilled your coffee, whatever, where you're off your game and the real you is going to come out. And it's not to say that we don't all have good days and bad days and things that we're still working on, but I'm talking about real, true authenticity by embodying that which you speak of. It will show up at some point. And even if it doesn't come out in some kind of explosive way, there's an undercurrent of it that maybe someone couldn't articulate or quite put their finger on, but what they're saying about you, there's something a little off about her. I don't know. She just kind of rubs me the wrong way. And that's this piece that I refer to as embodiment. Like you have to be it. You can't just say it. You can't just read the books. You can't just regurgitate the information. And it's that part, right, that I think we all need support with, because that's the other thing is you can't see. You typically can't see what's going on with you. And that's why you need someone like you to be like, let me coach you. Let me mentor you. Let me give you this other perspective. Have you thought of it like this? I noticed that happens. Like what's coming up for you? You need that accountability because you probably can't see all of the ways in which you're not fully healed yet. So what's your thoughts on that?
It is. And I think what we don't often talk about is wounded leaders. Wounded leaders. And leaders that have been burnt, taken advantage of, years of microaggressions, particularly, and I'll keep the conversation for women.
Yeah.
Women in the workplace that have been mistreated in the workplace, that have hit a ceiling. We don't talk about that. I'll go further than burnout. I'll say wounded.
That's a dangerous thing. It's a dangerous thing, but you're right. It's happening all the time. And, what comes up for me when you say that is, I remember when I first got into the real workforce, like I was always waitressing and stuff like that. But when I got like my first real job, there was just such a culture of like, you check your emotions at the door. Like that's where it stops. And then you come into work and you do your work apparently like a robot. And then at 5 o'clock, you're allowed to turn your emotions back on. And that was just the most patriarchal, archaic nonsense. And I'm just like, what did we think people could do? Did we think that like you could just, you have a sick parent, you have a sick child, you're going through a divorce, you've got a loved one with a mental health issue that's going through something, and somehow you just turn that off and you show up at work and everything's fine? That it's just such a ridiculous notion to even suggest. That's just not even possible. But what's exciting to me is it sounds like we're on the precipice of really embracing the full human being. And I know for me, when my emotions are tended to, I thrive more at work. I'm more creative. I'm more innovative. I'm more flexible, right? I don't get bent out of shape so easy because internally I'm in such a great space that even if you drop a bomb on me, like I'm going to navigate that and I'm going to do just fine with it. So it's interesting that it seems like maybe we're getting to a place where we're starting to acknowledge and embrace that.
No, absolutely. You hear a lot about workplace wellness, and I think employers are recognizing it's more than physical wellness. I think they're recognizing that they have to prioritize wellness because we all know workforce shortages, staffing shortages, different industries, remote work now. There are lots of options.
Right.
There are lots of options. And so we know what it costs to turn over positions and when employees leave, the cost to the company. So I think companies recognize the importance of workplace wellness, holistic workplace wellnesses, and really investing in hearing from employees about those workplace cultures that may be toxic or unhealthy or not spaces where women have traditionally thrived in.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I'm doing a lot of, it's been really interesting. I've had a lot of people reaching out to me to speak on personal brand as an insurance policy against AI. And this was so fascinating because I hadn't even thought of it. Like, I love AI. I'm playing with AI. I paid a consultant to teach me how to build AIs because I know there's no stopping it. Like, we won't stop it. It's coming. So you got to get on the train, get on the train as quick as you can. We saw this happen with the social media boom in 2015. We saw the same thing happen with the internet boom back in 2000. And yes, it shifted our workforce drastically. But there was also opportunities in that. And I think a lot of the information that's coming out right now, and I completely understand it, it's a little unnerving. It's a little scary. They're saying 60% of white collar jobs are going to be gone by 2030. And of those jobs lost, for every one job that a man loses, 3 women will lose theirs. So there is an extremely disproportionate impact on how it will affect the community. And the very exciting, now some people are panicking about that. I get really excited because you know me, Sarah. I get really excited because when we created this form of working, women weren't in the workforce and we never would have picked 9 to 5. Why would we? That would never work with the school schedule. We would have probably created some kind of hybrid model because we still need to raise our children and take care of our families. So we're about to walk into this age where anyone could be a solopreneur, a gig economist, a small business owner. You have AI now that, no, it can't do everything, but I had to hire an admin, when I started. And now you can get away with maybe not having some of those hires to get you up and running. So my question to a lot of women is, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? Because You can't tell me that your corporate job is what you dreamed of when you were a child. For most women, okay, some of them maybe. But for most women, I would say this probably isn't what you dreamed of when you were a little girl. And even maybe that wasn't, you were a child and you couldn't think things through. But even when you became a young adult, was this what you envisioned? Or now that you're here, is it what you want? Because if it's not, there's about to be an entirely new possibility available to us. And guess what? We're a part of the conversation now. We get to have a hand in designing what that could look like. So I'm so excited. Although, yes, I understand, the fear and the apprehension. My thing is, let's not put our head in the sand. Let's start preparing now, because we have 3.5 years until that gets here. Now it's already in motion. It's already happening.
Absolutely.
But what can we do right now to put ourselves in a position where this becomes a win for us? Because that's what happened with the social media boom of 2015. That's what happened with the internet boom of 2000. And now we're at the AI boom. And this has the capacity to level a whole lot of playing fields if you just position yourself in the right place.
It is. And I think, when we think about our economy and potential job losses and what that will look like, the trickle effect of AI replacing millions of jobs in this country, I think it's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
Of what that magnitude of unemployment will look like for our economy. And so when you start talking about the economy and losses in jobs, which means homes, livelihoods, health, wellness, it gets pretty scary for some. And I think we are hearing that aspect of it and not any of the positive aspects of it.
Yes. I couldn't agree with you more. And it did take me some of my own research to get to that point where I could see, here's what that pathway could be. And with the tools that we have available to us. And I think that's this other major thing. I was just chatting with my counterpart in the incubator. And I said, there's more of a tech gap than I expected. And most of our participants are millennials, so typically not as tech savvy as some of the younger ones now, but, we're known for being pretty tech savvy. And I'm like, there's just more of a tech gap here than I anticipated. And yes, we're going to make some adjustments and do some training for sure. But with AI, right, that's the part where it's like, this is moving so fast that we have to jump in it right now, and we have to figure it out as we go, and we have to just get really, really comfortable with it. And that's going to take a whole lot of uncomfortability and navigating these things and trying to figure it out. But I really just believe if we can put the right structures in place, get the right people in the right places, this could turn into a tremendous opportunity. And I'm seeing it happen right now. Like we use it at Moxie, not to do our work, because it can't think for you. I think people have a misconception that AI can think for you. It can't. It cannot. It does really good when you tell it exactly what to do and how to do it, but as we're using it, it's filling in some gaps. I had a client who was really interested in recreating a website for a tool that was no longer going to be in service. The company is removing it. And we started looking into it. And of course, I'm using AI to help my research process because it's just a heck of a lot faster. And I stumble into some pieces that essentially show me that there is nothing else in this niche, in this space. And what we should do is not just that, but what we should do is add these 3 elements, and we could turn this into a multi-million-dollar solution. right? So anyone can jump on AI and pull that information up. It's just guiding people in how do we do that. So I'm so excited for what the possibilities could be, but I agree. We're not hearing a whole lot of that. But as we wrap up for today, Dr. Sara, I'm just so thankful for the work that you do in our community and in our region and the impact that it's having. I'm so grateful for the spaces that you create to have these conversations. I'll tell you, I sat through some of those workshops last year and I learned a lot. I shut my mouth and I opened my ears and I learned a lot. And I made some beautiful relationships that are still very present in my life. And I can't wait to go back this year and get into the nitty gritty with them this year and bring this information to them so they can get ready. But as we wrap up for today, I just, wonder your thoughts on, what are your final thoughts on how can women show up more powerfully in this moment? How can we come together, through allyship and through healing to really move forward in a powerful way?
I say really want more. Want more. When you want more, when you want to be exposed to something new, different individuals, you'll show up in spaces where you never have before. You will show up in spaces where some friends and colleagues may not. I say be brave, take a risk. Go to a conference or a summit or a seminar that you've never thought about attending. If none of your other girlfriends or colleagues want to go, you go for yourself. Want more.
I love it.
Expand your horizon and don't wait on others to come aboard. Go for yourself.
Beautiful. Well, tell us as we wrap up here for today, tell us the Women of Color Summit this year. When and where is it? How can they get tickets?
Yes. Women of Color Summit in person, June 3rd and 4th in Niagara Falls, and virtual June 16th and 23rd, and thepicd.org.
Amazing.
We are going live tonight because we are going to be in Batavia tomorrow launching registration. But thepicd.org is the organization where I am leading now, and that's where the Women of Color Summit is now. Elleversity is still very much a partner, but we're excited and we welcome all. And I'm looking for Rochester, Royal communities to come out, show up. Men, women, all background, all industries, all ethnicities, all skill level. We want to see you in this space. You are welcome in this space, and there is something for you in this space. Don't be afraid to do something new.
I can't wait. It's going to be amazing. Thank you so much, Sara.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome.